Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever it is for you, wherever you are in this great big world, whoever that is. My name is Michael John of Michael John Paranormal Ghost Stories, and I am a co-ghost host along with the man of the hour, the man of the power. Too sweet to be sour. His name, of course, is High Spirit's own Dale Quigley. Together, we are the voice for the paranormal, the voice of the paranormal, Windsor, Ontario's own, the paranormal voice. And today we got a heck of a show. Unlike any other show, I've been very excited for this one out of the gate. Very, very lovely lady. We had the pleasure of meeting her at the My Paracon this past summer in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, which is a 3-day event. That is the WrestleMania of Paracons. If you haven't made it to that one, that's the go-to. If you never make it to another one in your life, get to that one. Anyways, our friend here, she is an intuitive medium, does remote viewing. She's had experiences with Dogman, Puck Wudgies, on and on. She's very rounded. If there's anybody in the paranormal world that we know who's well-rounded from A to Z, she's done it, she's doing it, it's happening to her. This is this lady here, and her name is the very lovely Laura Squicciarini. Welcome, Laura. It's great to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, no, definitely welcome. It's been a long time. We were very excited when we finally got this one in the books. So it's, yeah, like I said, this poor lady had to sit next to us for 3 days and listen to us talk and talk and talk. I was like, wow, she probably was glad to get home, go, finally, peace and quiet.
Oh, and I signed back up.
You did. Yes, you did.
I'll agree to come back as long as I don't sit next to those guys again. No, but absolute pleasure. You know, it was a great 3 days, and you know, it's always amazing on the people that you meet at these events, and then you end up becoming family with them. And you know, like once again, we were so happy to meet you and get to know you over 3 days, and absolute blessing. So hey, what else can I say? We're glad to have you. So let's kick this off. If anybody that is watching the show has a question for this fantastic lady, just type it down there in the comments. We'll make sure we get to ask her. So let's start off like right out of the gate. What got you interested into the paranormal?
Yeah, so actually my first memory of life is with the paranormal. I was about 3 years old, and in our old house, there was a little tree outside the window, and I distinctly remember looking out and seeing this thing. It wasn't quite human. It wasn't quite, I grew up in a fairly Christian household. It wasn't quite what you would picture as like a demon. It was somewhere in between. And I remember being so scared and then realizing that my family wasn't able to see this thing and that there was something a little bit different in how I could see things. And that just continued on until about puberty when I was like, yeah, I don't like this. It's scary. There's things that I can see other people can't see. And I really stifled it. And after enough things happen, you can't really stifle it anymore. And so I kind of privately dove into researching the paranormal, seeing why I was a little bit different than everybody else. And then I've also experienced just a lot of death in my life. I lost my father at a young age, my godfather, friends, more family than that even. And so I realized that death is something that's very unique and we all have our own relationship with it. And that can feed into our love of the paranormal. And so I kind of have that dual interest that really led me to wanting to learn as much as humanly possible. And in the past, 6 years, I think now, I've really started to hone my mediumship. And that gave me an even deeper facet that I could kind of connect with those things.
Wow. Now, we've had the you and myself, Laura,
Mhm.
we've had the opportunity to talk countless times now,
Yeah.
and it's always been very in depth. And I'm going to go back to the day we met, and it
Mm.
started from there. And between the three of us, it's crazy the synchronicities
Yeah.
that we've encountered. And you commented once you get into the paranormal family, if you will, you start
Mhm.
experiencing more and more synchronicities.
Yeah.
I remember quoting you basically. And it's true though. It's so true. There's been
Yeah.
so many things and um, not to mention the parallels of experiences that we've all had
Mhm.
or similarities, whether
Oh,
it be shadow
absolutely.
figures or, and we're going to talk on this a bit about you and Dogman. Oh my God. I'm like, oh yeah,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
funny.
I was just excited to geek out with anybody about Dogman.
Right. It's so cool.
Yeah.
I mean, you have intuitive medium skills. I'm just looking here
Mhm.
on all my little notes here on you. Remote viewing abilities, automatic writing. Um, you say you tend to connect easily with elementals and
Yes.
earth energies. So
Mhm.
let's go that route just for a minute. Let's kind
Okay.
of go to the right and talk about that. What have you experienced with that, like elementals,
Yeah.
for example, and
So
what would they be?
actually, that first memory, I think a lot of people seeing what it looked like, they would categorize demon. It didn't quite look like a person sitting there. But in my understanding, after having done so much of that research and trying to connect with those energies, it very much felt like elemental energy.
Okay.
And so it's really interesting because, like you said, there's synchronicities. Once you start to open your eyes to things, you see it all over and you start to
Mhm.
have those mirrors no matter what. So even when I moved into this apartment, I saw something very similar in a tree that's just outside my window. And the first
Wow.
night that I stayed here, there were little twinkle lights going up to the window. And I live in Michigan, so I'm used to
Mhm.
fireflies. I know what they look like.
Sure.
But these were up against the window and they almost had a human form to them. And so in my
Wow.
brain, it felt very much like the Fae. They were coming in
Mhm.
another type of elemental energy. And then come to find out there's a little like fairy garden out there that somebody who lived in this
Oh,
building previously created in this courtyard. And so you start to notice those synchronicities kind of attached to each other. And so elemental energy is just something that I think I personally am just open to that energy.
so now, pardon
Mhm.
me. Do you have like as far as seeing, Faye outside, as you will,
Mhm.
um, what's going on inside of your apartment? There's got to be something going on.
I
I'm
have
just
really good boundaries up. So not a lot happens in my apartment, but
okay.
it's really funny. I study under Jessica Potter, and
Mm,
there's a door. This is mirrored. One of these sides, you can see a door frame. And so we were doing a class one night, and she's like, I can just see elemental energy coming in and out of that door. And that's the
wow.
one spot that I don't have lots of extra protection up on it, where I would normally put like crystals or sigils or something on my doors.
Mm,
I don't have one on that one. So it was interesting that she was able to see that energy coming in and out. And so I
mm,
think, like I said, some of us are just more open to that. They know
mm,
I'm not afraid of it. A lot of people fear it because it's not a human spirit. And
right.
I don't hold that fear around them. And so they probably feel a bit more comfortable coming to somebody who's not going to just judge and shut down.
And a lot of people would be afraid. I mean, you mentioned
Mhm.
sigils, and we've talked about that before, you and I,
Mhm.
kind of, things that I like to say dabble in,
Yeah.
uh, a little bit of witchcraft or voodoo. That's
Mhm.
me. I'm a dabbler.
Yeah.
If people saw the way I handle things, it's so reckless,
Yep.
but it's how I do it. I don't
Yeah.
believe in protection, that sort of stuff. But
Mhm.
sigils, getting to my point, I mean, going back to, certain things scare the Jesus out of people, and it's just not
Mhm.
the next level they want to go. They want to
Yeah.
talk about, basic, ghost hauntings and aliens, which is great.
Mhm.
But sigils, for those that out there don't know what that is, that's basically a symbol to represent a deity, a
Mhm.
being, an entity, however it
An
resonates with you.
intention. Mhm.
Intention. Yes,
Mhm.
exactly. Thank you.
Yeah.
So now, what type of
Mhm.
uh, what type of sigil are you using to for protection? If you could explain that, I don't know if you could, but hopefully you can.
Yeah. So I actually didn't learn about them in depth until I started watching some of the things that like Dana Newkirk does. And she
Oh, I
works
love
a
her.
lot with intention. And so
Yeah.
mine isn't to a specific deity or goddess, anything like that. It's
Okay.
what feels right coming from my brain and my heart and my intention onto
Mm.
paper. And so
Yes.
the one on my front door is different than the one on my bedroom door.
Wow.
And
So that
so,
just comes from in here. You just
mhm.
draw as you feel. Wow.
Yep.
That's
And
cool.
I'm sure if I found a huge book or encyclopedia of them and looked, it would either mirror or be exactly the same as one that's already been created. But
Yep.
my intention in it, my power is what makes it work. And so it's each one's a
Bottom
little
line.
bit different based on what I need. Mhm. And then I get my crystals from Jessica, so that helps a lot.
Crystals by Jessica sounds like it sounds like it's almost like a Hallmark moment.
Right. It does. Her new branding.
Uh, but no, and that's the one unique thing I find about being in the paranormal world and having different experiences. But like when you say when it comes to certain things like what you're doing, it's what's coming in from within you and your energies creating.
Mm-hmm.
So it's working for you, and what works for you might not work for, say, Michael John and myself.
Absolutely.
But we can do very similar stuff
Mhm.
and create very similar as well. But
Yeah.
and that's the unique thing about every individual
Mhm.
in this umbrella we call the paranormal,
Yeah.
is that we all kind of have similar experiences, but yet they're all unique to us in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, no, that's all quite fascinating. Like I said, it's very. I mean, it would probably be fun to spend an hour inside your brain to see how that
I don't
functions.
know. It's a little chaotic in there, but
Yeah,
we can
it's like I always
excel.
said. People ask me that question. I'm like, just picture yourself running around in a dark room.
Yep, hamster wheel. Yeah.
But yeah, no, just the experiences that you like listening. It's just like, wow, that's truly amazing. And your gifts, yeah, I mean, it goes beyond.
Yeah, we're just such powerful beings on our own that once you kind of move all that clutter and the extra and the you're supposed to do it this way, that's when
Right.
really cool stuff happens. When you just kind of sink into yourself and what it is you need and what you can trust within yourself, that eventually snowballs into really, really awesome things like dabbling with sigils or working up the gall to go look for dog man. Like you just, you really start to blossom once you learn that you can do things on your own.
Right.
So I'm sorry, pardon me. I got a frog in my throat today.
Oh, no, you're good.
I don't know why. So you definitely fit the bill. I mean, you fit in with the rest of us here, at TPV Nation, Laura. For sure, you're in that moniker of creeps, freaks, and weirdos,
Oh,
and
yeah.
that's the highest compliment we can give you, of course, here. And I love it. And this is so awesome. Picking the brain of Laura Squicciarini.
I was going
Right?
to say, there it is.
Yeah, thank
There it is.
uh, I got to go there. I can't wait anymore. I want to go into the Dogman realm and you
Mhm.
and what you have to talk about that. And there's a couple things. I mean, you experienced Dogman to a degree, but also,
Mhm.
and so I'm going to give you the stage, if you will. So Dogman and the little boy spirit that followed you home, and he was attached to you as well. So
Mhm.
and go.
Yeah. So actually, this was how long ago now? I want to say it was 2010. I had a friend who was on a national US TV program for like hunting dog man. And he was just some like local yokel, didn't really want any, didn't want notoriety, didn't even really want people to know he was on this show. But we
Mhm.
grew up together. And so he took me and my best friend to go out looking for him. And we didn't really realize where this road was. And there's a specific road that he was featured on the show. Sorry, my volume is doing weird things. There we go. And so he took us out there, this one very special road. We didn't realize that there was an old schoolhouse on this road that had a cemetery behind it. He left that part out. So we go to this road. We're walking around the truck, trying to get Dogman to pay attention to us, whatever it was we were doing as like 19-year-olds. Not a very official like hunt. But I get back in the truck after creeping myself out, and I hear a little boy talking. And I realize his truck is off, so it's not the radio. This is long before smartphones or even really cell phones were being used much. And so I look at my best friend, and she's doing Hail Marys. And I was like, okay, like that caught me off guard.
Yeah,
So
right.
then I realized that we can see a little boy's reflection in the truck side mirror. But he's
Awesome.
not a little boy. It looked as real as you guys do to me, but to her, she saw him as like a ghostly figure.
Mhm.
And so I am not Catholic. I am not joining in her Hail Marys, and I hear him talking directly to me.
Mm.
And at that point, I was like, I'm going to get back out of the truck and wander into the woods and do the Dogman. That's less scary. Come to find out, that little boy attached himself to me, and I just got rid of. He wasn't ever like anything threatening, so I don't want to make it seem like I like booted him out of my house or anything. I always told him he was welcome as long as he was nice to the cats and didn't break anything. And so he finally just left about a year ago. And so he was with me for 10 years, several moves. People had seen him in my house. People had heard him on phone calls. And then for the Dogman, I went back to that road without the guide. And
By yourself.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I'm not surprised. Why am I not surprised here?
I could have made better choices, but it was really fun. And so
It's not like a fun thing to do at the moment.
yeah. Until I realized like there's a very tall thing in the woods staring right back at me that is taller than a human should be. And this is out in the boonies. There's no one around. There's no houses around. In fact, that there's acreage, and it actually butts up to where my dad is buried. And so I'm very familiar with this area, but there's no real homes. It's like county land. And so there's this thing, and it kind of stands up even taller. And I was like, okay, well, that's definitely not a person height. And it has a snout.
Yes.
And the eyes are like orange. And so I was like, unless it's possible a wolf like was standing up to like, because they'll do that sometimes, smell things on trees. And so I have convinced myself over time that it was a real wolf and not actually Dogman. But it was Dogman. And so I got a twofer on that road. I got a little boy spirit, and then eventually went back by myself and got to experience kind of the stereotypical image of what you would picture Dogman being.
Now, when you experienced seeing Dogman, I got to ask, I mean, did you notice any smells in the air? Did you feel a certain way? Was there anything like that going on?
I'm heavily weighed towards fight or flight. And so it was a lot of like, if this is not a cryptid, this is an animal that you need to put some distance between yourself and it. And so I was already far enough away that I didn't get any distinct smells or anything like that. But it's an immediate, the hair on your entire body stands up. You notice either yourself, you're getting colder in reaction to this, or the air between us was getting significantly colder.
That says a lot right there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
I mean that's I mean, from what I'm learning, I know Michael John's more of the big Dogman fanatic than I am, and I'm very interested in learning more about the Dogman. I'm just trying to think. It's like I don't like. I mean, yeah, I would have probably not even been there as long as you have. As soon as I saw the eyes, I probably would have left my car there and probably ran all the way home. It's thinking I'll get there a lot faster than me jumping in this car right about now. But I mean, so it's like the energy that was in the air.
Mm-hmm.
It's, I mean, was it, did you feel any telepathic? Because they say like Dogman and Bigfoot, like they can communicate telepathically. Like, did you
Mm-hmm.
experience any of that? Like, I mean, meanwhile, your body's telling you, like, no, let's get the hell out of here. But what were you like getting any messages?
Now that you mention it, it's interesting because while I was trying to rationalize, like, okay, this could be a wolf standing up, this could be a bear, even, this could be something tangible, there was an override of, you know better than that. Like, you're connected enough that you're locking eyes with something. And so I, as myself, was like, oh no, this is not what that is. You're experiencing something totally rational, something totally normal. There is an almost override that comes in, is like, no, you're onto something. This is a little bit different. And that could be coming from what that was,
Right.
or just the basic mediumship underlying of just, you don't need to talk yourself out of these experiences. Like, this is really real and this is happening.
Right. And I mean, and I'm sure a lot of people, like even in the paranormal world, like people who experience spirits or ghosts or
Mhm.
always try to chalk it up to, oh, it must be a window that's open,
Yeah.
or I yawned so my eyes went blurry for a second,
Mhm.
And so yeah, and it's like you always have to have I think it's because our brain is just trained as we get older, or we've been so filled with what we should think and
Yeah.
what is actually real,
Mhm.
is that part of the brain is telling you, yeah, no, it's like you said, it's a wolf, it's a bear, it's really not a
Mhm.
dog man. So you're trying to rationalize so that you can make yourself feel better. But
Yeah.
I don't know if meeting a bear or a wolf in that situation would have been any better.
No, probably not. But it felt better to think that in the moment.
Because I'm sure all three of them were thinking, oh, look, dinner.
Yeah. I'm sure. Just a single person out on the road. Yep.
I don't know how cryptid thinks or spirit world thinks, but I'm thinking
Mhm.
she's alone. She's probably crazier than us.
Yeah, probably. Who should we fear in this moment?
Maybe we should run away from
Right.
her. But yeah, no, I mean that's definitely something that uh, you know any of us had that type of experience. I mean, that's going to be something that you'll be able to think about forever, and
Oh
you
yeah.
probably, like I said, it's. Have you ever gone back to that spot again to like even to see if you could find footprints or anything?
I went back years later. I moved from the area and lived even farther downstate for a long while. And then when I came back, I went around because I was also really curious about that schoolhouse. And so I just kind of did some surveying and I didn't really see much. But the next day I didn't go back because I
Hmm.
had convinced myself that I was crazy enough the night before, and just decided to not continue venturing unless I had folks with me. And at that point,
Yeah,
I'd freaked everybody out enough that they didn't want to go back with me.
And it's probably wise, I mean, to think
Yeah.
about
Mhm.
if you're going to do it again, don't
yeah,
do it alone, because Dogman is known for
Mhm.
taking people, and that's it. That's
Yeah.
all.
yeah.
Mhm.
From the little bit of knowledge I know about the topic,
Yeah.
they're very well known for kidnapping. Bigfoot
Mhm.
as well.
Yeah.
And whatever cryptids are that we don't know of, and there's so many things. I mean, there's a list. I mean, you
Mhm.
mentioned let's segue a little over a bit off of Dogman to puckwudgies. What in the
Mhm.
heck is a puckwudgie?
So they're a Native American spirit and they're a trickster. They
Wow.
are very much known, especially in my area, for helping folks get lost.
Mm,
Generally, they'll lead you to, I was telling Dale earlier, so sheer cliffs, caves, places where you're going to find yourself in positions where you cannot get yourself out of.
mm,
And it's strictly because we're on their land, or they want to mess with us a little bit for being intrusive. And
yes.
so my experience was on Mackinac Island, which is very close to my home.
Okay.
And so that was an intrusion on our part.
Wow.
Excuse me. I also have a frog in my throat.
Yeah. So where you're working now,
Mhm.
the TC Commons is
Yes.
correct?
Mhm.
Okay. Now there's activity there, I believe you mentioned. So what's the history of that place? Is there something to do with that? Was there something on the land before that TC Commons became TC Commons, if you will? Was it another type of entity, meaning like could it have been, was it an asylum or something before?
Mhm.
Like what's the history there?
Yeah, so it's multi-layered. Before the white colonizers were there, it was a huge tribal community.
Hmm.
And so after that was taken and the community was built up, there was a huge need for mental health spaces in Michigan. And so we kind of catered in my area to everywhere from the upper half of the state. And so they made what was called the Traverse City State Hospital. And it was an asylum, is where folks went to be housed when their families couldn't care for them anymore. So instead of being put in closets and basements and attics and the worst conditions people could endure, they were instead sent to this place where the whole premise was beauty is therapy. They very
What is
much
that?
so instead of forcing people to be held in confined rooms, they got to wander the grounds. They had huge 10-foot windows. So the whole premise is they genuinely wanted these folks to feel normal. They wanted them to
Nice.
work in the farms. And so they had ownership over what they ate. They did their own laundry there. So there was a lot of true beauty in how they were helping like rehabilitate or treat these folks.
Okay.
And so it was a true asylum. And then eventually the state closed it down and it sat abandoned for quite a long time until it was turned into this mixed community. So it's housing, there's shopping, there's restaurants, there's wineries, breweries, there's all sorts of stuff on this campus now. And so they really were able to salvage the beauty of it.
Mm.
And they do historic tours there as well.
Nice.
And so it's a very multifaceted campus, essentially. And well, it's not haunted. There's experiences that can happen there.
Now, are these residual type of hauntings? If you're to guess, I guess, are they residual or are they intelligent?
Honestly, I think both. So some people, their entire lives were spent there. They were sent there as children and they passed away there. And so I imagine that there's going to be some residue from that many lives lived in a small space. But then there are folks who come back and check on us. Tends to be more what I experience. It feels like they're just kind of popping in, checking out the place, making sure their home is still well taken care of. And then every once in a while, you'll see or feel or hear something that sounds more like residual chatter, just the leftovers. But I feel very fortunate that I get to be a medium that works there because I get to experience a little bit more than I think the general public would be able to.
Yeah, no kidding. That is neat. For lack of, that's my favorite. That's neat.
Yeah.
It is. It really
Yeah, it
is.
feels
Some
like a
people are like, "Oh my
privilege.
how could you work there? You're crazy." I'd be, like Gail said, I'd be running out. But someone like yourself,
Mhm.
again, one of the creeps, freaks, and weirdos.
Yeah.
You stay in it. You stay in the fire as long as you can, and it's like, yeah, give me more, raise the flames, whatever. It's never enough, right?
Mhm.
So
Especially when the folks there, they were, for the most part, mentally ill
yeah,
to have landed there. And so for them to trust the person who's around enough to be seen by them, it feels like a genuine privilege. It's like, okay, you can tell that we would get along. Like I would take good care of you in life and in the afterlife.
Yep.
And so I don't often to customers and stuff talk about it because there are people who are going to come in and not realize that this was a person's home, but then I get to kind of bask in it quietly. And so that I think is very, very cool.
And what I think with knowing you, Laura, about you, you have this amazing attitude of gratitude 24/7.
Thank
And I think that, no, you really do. I mean, that's what I observe, and a lot of people observe. I mean, you're very likable. You're like the mayor of the paranormal community. You really are. I mean, who doesn't know you? Who doesn't appreciate you? And I
Right.
think what I'm getting at on that is your gifts. I mean, that's got a lot to do with your abilities. And I'm
you.
sure it powers up your abilities because of that attitude of gratitude, your mediumship, which I want to get into next. I mean, that's
Mhm.
something you're going to be, I believe you're going to be offering that soon, right?
Yeah, I actually just opened up for services again last Friday. And so they're officially bookable, which is really cool. I did take some time off during the pandemic. It was just a very heavy time for everybody. And so trying to connect folks in such a tender time didn't quite feel right.
Mm-hmm.
And so now that everybody feels a bit more, not light, but we don't have the heaviness of worrying about, okay, is so and so going to pass away? Can I connect to who and who? It feels like the right time to be able to open that back up to people.
Mm-hmm.
And so that also feels like a huge privilege just to be able to get back into it.
And there you go again with your gratitude. I no, it's awesome. I mean, it's so refreshing, and it's genuine. You know what I
Thank you.
mean? And Dale and I have spoke about this. I mean, you can't. Um, I forget who I'm quoting. Someone else in the paranormal community. I believe it was Jeff Belanger, if I'm not mistaken. But you can't fake passion,
Oh,
and you
well, I'll take a
clearly
Jeff Belanger quote.
you clearly can't. You don't fake passion, and that's that. That exudes you. That's you.
Thank you.
Laura Squicciarini does not fake passion. She is passionate about the paranormal. She's passionate about mediumship. She's passionate about her experiences. You know, um, and that again, I mean, that definitely probably empowers you. I mean, for anybody.
Mhm.
You hear, law of attraction. Be in the attitude of gratitude. It's going to help
Yeah.
you, and you live that, and I think that's great. I mean, and that's definitely a tidbit for anybody out there. I think that wants to get involved in mediumship or the like.
Mhm.
The more grateful you can be for your gifts, and that's what they are.
Yeah.
The powers that be up there that grant you these gifts, uh,
Mhm.
they like that, right? It's like going back to magic that you and I have discussed. It's definitely showing gratitude, whether that's in
Yeah.
an offering, of alcohol and snacks or what
Mhm.
have you,
Right.
flowers, on and on. It's
Mhm.
the same thing. You're giving back in one way or another, and
Yeah.
you clearly do that.
Thank you.
Um, now, death doula,
Pardon?
death doula.
Yes. So I kind of dabbled in classes during the pandemic, but they got shut down, obviously. And death doulas or end of life doulas is essentially the same thing as a birth doula, except you're helping individuals transition to the end of their life. And so it can be anything that that person really needs from you. It could be helping their family plan the at home funeral or be the liaison between a funeral home and the family. There's a lot of celebration of life that people are doing while they're still alive, which is
Mhm.
really cool. And so that way you get to celebrate with folks as opposed to having a funeral. It's also making sure that people are just really comfortable. So you can work alongside hospice. You can work in
Wow.
place of hospice if they're past the point of palliative care. And so it really just is the focus on how can we help this person transition from what they know currently to what a lot of folks are afraid of, which is the full death process. And so I'm super excited to be starting to take those classes again here soon.
That is definitely truly interesting. Just
Mm.
like I mean, knowing I wish my dad would have had something like that
Mm.
when he was passing. Uh, because yeah, there are a lot of people that would probably be more comfortable knowing
Mm.
that going over is more peaceful. And I'll share something that I don't share too often.
Mm.
And that was probably, see, my dad died in October, and it was it always seems around the time of his death, like he's always around me, but it seems like around the time of his death, it gets very, very uh, more active, I should say. He becomes more active. So this past year, this troubled me for days, and I ended up reaching out to Exie over this.
Mm.
Was that I had a dream that I was in a room, but on a table I could see a picture of my dad, and then on the top of the picture frame was another picture of my dad. And as I got closer to it, all of a sudden my dad was there. He was standing right beside this podium with his pictures. And I often do get to ask him questions, and this time I asked him a direct question and I got the answer to it,
Wow.
which was, what was it like to die?
Mm.
And he told me it was the most warmest experience anybody can ever feel. And it was truly amazing. Like, as you can tell, I tear up when I talk about my father, but I came out of that and it was like, wow. And I couldn't understand it. I finally reached out to Exie because Exie is a very close friend. And I told this to her, and she just said, he just gave you the greatest gift anybody could ever ask for.
Mm-hmm.
So, so just knowing that, it's like opened up my eyes so much more of, I've never been one too afraid to die.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's like knowing of what the sensation is like. It's kind of probably puts more people at ease knowing
Oh yeah.
that little fact that it's not as scary as people thinks it is.
Yeah, absolutely. My dad passed when I was 14, fairly suddenly. And so we were talking about earlier that everybody experiences death a little bit differently, but with end of life doula training, you learn a lot about visioning and like the death reach and talking to past loved ones. And so my dad called out to 3 of his family that had passed, some of them before he was born. And so that is something that always kind of stuck with me. It's like they make sure that the transition isn't a scary one. And so it's really interesting that people do have those experiences like you're describing where it feels like a warm hug. It feels like falling asleep, some people will come through and say. And so it's really cool that we're able to kind of offer that piece to folks, whether you're doing it on like a death doula basis or even as a paranormal investigator, you're able to kind of comfort people in what we all end up going through.
Right.
And so that, I think that's very cool.
Almost like an ambassador, if you will, right? Well,
Yeah.
It's quite a hat to wear, actually.
Yeah.
Very, very admirable hat to wear for sure. I mean, that's wow.
Yeah.
Some people can only dream of doing that, but here you are, you're going out there making things happen,
Mm.
and you've got quite a list of making things happen as well. I mean, you have your own shop, and that's how we met you.
Yeah.
Fortunate enough to meet you at the My Paracon again in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan. 3 days of, banter back and forth.
Yeah.
It was so much fun
Mm-hmm.
to get to meet you and become friends with you like we are now, and I'm grateful for that. But I mean, so your shop, I mean, you sell so many awesome things from incense to crystals. And I'm just scratching the surface, if you will. But I mean, what's the name of your business, if you will, just so anybody out there that wants to check out what you have to offer, and again, you have so many awesome things. Please list everything and how they can find you.
Yeah.
Please.
So North Waters Alchemy is my shop. That website encompasses my mediumship services as well as actual tangible items. So I've really been focusing since the last convention year kind of slowed down, rebuilding into things that I use in my own home, as opposed to just kind of making things that felt fun. I was like, I might as well make what I use as tried and true. So like the salts I use on my home, that I use in conjunction with like the sigils and the crystals, that kind of thing. So there's protection salts. There's something called lunar salt that I'm really proud of. I make it under a full moon and I make it so that you can use it in a bath. You can put it on an altar. It can help with sleep. Dale and I were talking about being insomniacs. And so I use that to try to help in aiding sleep as well as like protection sprays, things like
I still have mine.
Florida water. Yeah, just anything that helps, like I was saying earlier, really harness the power that we already have. So I just make the clean slate. You can set whatever intention you want to it and then utilize it how feels right for you.
Now, going back to the mediumship, if someone wants to reach out to you and book a date with you, an opportunity with you to have a reading from you, how does that work? How do they reach out to you for that?
Yeah, so I utilize Facebook business pages, and it's just under my name, which is quite long, but usually if you just type in Laura SQU, I'm like the only one that comes up, which makes it really easy for folks. And then on that same North Waters Alchemy, I make sure that at the very top there's a services tab, and that takes you right to a directory that lists all of the different services, their time frames. Some are a quick half-hour service if you'd like, up to an hour. As people are having the need, I'm going to flex up to 90-minute reads as well. It's all virtual, which is really nice. So you don't have to worry about traveling to me or waiting until I'm in your area. That's why remote viewing that I've practiced with Jessica is really nice. I can still make that connection even if it's through a screen like this. And that way, if you have questions, it doesn't quite feel right. I also have a consultation that's free. We can connect, see if our energies align, if you like me, if it's going to be what you need specifically. And if I'm not who you need, we all have a black book roster of other mediums that we have in our pocket that I can direct you to that might be better suited for your energy.
Absolutely. So let's touch a little bit, because this is a topic that's been fascinating me, and it seems like every guest that we've had on the show for the last little while all do remote viewing.
Yeah.
Now this is one thing I think by the end of 2023, I want to be able to do this.
Yes.
And I've now set it as a life mission. Right now, as 2023's life mission is to learn how to do remote viewing. Now we've had I've had a lot of people basically tell me the basics. I mean, I'm just probably not comprehending, or just like, to me, it takes me a while to get stuff down, right?
Yeah.
So tell us about your very first remote viewing experience, and where was it? Like, what was it, a particular place you went to, or was it just like place you didn't know and this is how you ended up there?
Yeah. I don't think I realized I was doing it for the first probably 10 years that I was. Like I said, I tried to stifle my abilities as much as I could, but I would have these almost premonition style dreams where I was navigating houses or businesses or towns that I knew I hadn't been to. And then a year down the road, all of a sudden I'm in this business and I'm like, I can tell you exactly where this is, where the restroom is. I know where you keep your key and that kind of thing. And I would keep it to myself because I didn't want to scare people. But I started quickly realizing like, oh, this is something that I'm doing subconsciously.
Right.
So through practicing with Jessica, I was in her missing persons practice group, which is something that I really want to continue honing. But I was able to picture her childhood home, like down to the number of stairs on the flight of stairs, the turn, like how many levels, where a specific tree was in her yard, where she used to park her car as a child. And so through practicing, I kind of realized that it is something that maybe all of us can do if we're having those dreams or those flash visions of, oh, okay, I think I could be familiar with this place. But the more you practice it, the more you can really hone the nuances and the exact details of things, like the color of the handrail on her staircase. And so since then, I've been able to utilize that through practice in my readings. And it was freaky at first. when you start thinking like, okay, is this deja vu, or have I never actually been here and I just am able to kind of jump my brain into this setting?
See, that's the one thing that I'm trying to figure out right now. It's like, listening to people like you explained, you were at the particular building, you walked in, you said, "Wait, I've been here before." That does sound like a deja vu moment, and
Mhm.
I've experienced those. Like I will see people in my dreams that I don't even know.
Yeah.
But then it'd be like days or a week later, I'll be walking down the road and that person will walk by me and I'll be like, holy crap, that's the person.
Yeah.
Or I do this a lot at work, and it's like, it's either my job is getting to me or I'm just that fascinated by it. But I'll be at work and I'll be doing something and it'll be like, I felt like I've already done this before.
Mhm.
But it's like, no, I'm just like, my job is never the same day twice.
Mhm.
Because there's so many different elements that happen on a daily basis. Like your day is, you might be doing the same job, but the moments are not the same.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I have experienced a lot of deja vu moments where
Mhm.
I felt like I've been at this place or I've seen these people. So in a way, it sounds like I've almost like kind of done my own remote viewing and not realized it.
Mhm. I mean, it's very possible, especially if it's like you said, while you're dreaming. If it takes a lot of work to be conscious of what your dream is and remember it the next day. And so that's where I started. Was I was
Right.
like, okay, I know I'm having these dreams, but I'm forgetting them as soon as I wake up. So I started journaling and I started really focusing on retaining the information I'm getting in the dreams. And that way, because like we said earlier, we have to undo a lot of what we're taught in society. And it's like, no, I'm not crazy. This is actually what I dreamed or dreamt. And then I'm able to compare and contrast. And I think that was really helpful, was moving past talking myself out of it, essentially.
Well, yeah, no, like I totally can understand that because the
Mhm.
first 30 minutes of my day from the time I wake up is sit there and analyze what I just dreamed about. And if it's something that is so like overpowering, if for some reason I can't shake it, it's like I start writing down details
Yeah.
because I'm like, I'm either looking for a hidden message or there's a lot of like we've been talking to a lot to Dee Dee and Sarah from Paranormally Blonde,
Hmm.
and Dee Dee's a dream analyst,
Oh,
and
very cool.
so it's like I would have these things and I would tell her about it, and then she would tell me back, and but yeah, it's like, but it's places I've never been before.
Hmm.
Or it'll start out as a familiar place, but then I'll end up someplace I've never been before.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if these are actually, like, I'll give you an example. The last one that I had, there's a place here, it's called Harm Walkers. They were known to make Canadian whiskey. It's a very famous distillery. It was around in the rum running days.
Oh, cool.
So it's got a lot of history.
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of tunnels that were connected to this because a lot of mob people were known to visit these places back in the
Mhm.
day. So they had these escape tunnels. Now, I had a dream the other day where I was walking around Hard Walkers, but I ended up in a tunnel
Hmm.
trying to find somebody who I also saw in my dream.
Yeah.
But I couldn't find them, but I was going door to door. I finally opened up the door, and that's when I woke up.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. It'd be interesting to see if you could find like historic maps and see if
Right.
it lines up
Yeah.
to what it is you dreamt, because if that's the case, then you absolutely were able to put your mind there and have that navigation. If it ends up being right, then I think you're farther along on the remote viewing than you think you are.
No, but yeah, no, it's so yeah, that's one fascinating
Mhm.
thing in listening to Adam, the Black Swamp Medium. talk about what he does when he's remote viewing
Mm.
and how he uses it as a tool going into investigations. I'm like, now that would be
Yeah.
very interesting to do, to remote view a place before you actually go into it, so you kind of have an idea what you're up against.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when you're being called into a case of family being haunted or
Right.
being troubled by unknown spirits.
Mm-hmm. And I think a
So,
lot of mediums who have really honed that skill, but they don't want to put their physical body in any situation until they're sure. It can be more than just picturing a place. It can be reading the energy of, or reading the folks within that household too. And so it
right.
can be an extra layer of protection for people as well.
Yeah, it's kind of like being able to go someplace without putting yourself in in
Yeah.
harm's way. Essentially, yes. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I've never, to my knowledge, have done remote viewing. However, I relate to the dream scenario of this,
Mm-hmm.
where, and I believe I've even mentioned this to you, Laura. I think I've mentioned this to everybody that I've ever spoken to in the paranormal world about this. I mean, these dreams I have, I'll dream I'm in the same house, same, old wood paneling walls and
Mm-hmm.
the dark wood and the windows and the rooms inside of the rooms and the stairs and all that sort of stuff. And I know it like I know the back of my hand, but I've never seen this house that I'm inside in my waking life, but I know it.
Mm-hmm.
And the neighborhood, at one point, all of a sudden, I was venturing out into this neighborhood, which I know, again, back in my home, the corners, up and down the streets and all that sort of stuff. And we're going to go to the right a little bit on this. Dale and I were at the UFO Contact Convention in Houghton Lake, Michigan, run by Deb and RJ DeRoos
Mm-hmm.
last year as well. And I found out that actually is similar to what a lot of experiencers, of the UFO phenomenon, um, the alien connection, if you will. Um, your dreams, you'll have they'll give you these dreams all the time, and the dream will be the same, except, and that's something they do to us apparently. Um, but when you look a little deeper into the dream, so where normally there would be a light switch,
Mm-hmm.
or there's supposed to be a light switch, all of a sudden the light switch isn't there because for some reason they miss little things, little details,
Oh my gosh. You just
So,
opened a whole rabbit hole in my brain that I'm going to have to fall down.
oh yeah, that's
Yeah.
what we do, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I don't know. I mean, if I'm remote viewing, and again, like Dale, and we've
Mm-hmm.
talked about this pretty in depth, him and I, about
Yeah.
wanting to do this, and uh, Deb and RJ were actually very encouraging, mentioning them again, because
Mm-hmm.
we spoke to them about it as well, and they were encouraging, giving us little tidbits, little nuggets,
Yeah.
if you will, of how to go about it, focusing on where they live, and then getting back to them, saying, okay, well, we see this in your place, and this and this. It's still a work in progress. I'll just leave it at that. Not going to get into it too much. Otherwise, right? 'Cause that's our own little thing we're working on. But yeah, it's so amazing, and there's so many topics we could talk about. I can't
Mm-hmm.
believe. I mean, this hour has felt like 5 minutes. This is
Yeah. Oh, for
ridiculous.
sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I bet we could go easily 3 more, 4 more, and not
Yeah.
blink an eye, and still have more to talk about after that.
Yeah. Well, we filled
Um,
the 3 days of just nonstop, this kind of bouncing back and forth, which made, I think, the Michigan Paracon really fun, because it was
oh, it
just
was.
really cool how we're all just mirrors for each other, especially in this community.
Yes.
If somebody has a tidbit of a situation, somebody else has really gone through it, and so on and so forth. And
Right.
it's just really neat.
Yeah, everybody's there for everybody. And
Mm-hmm.
what's nice, again, I got to say it again, the 3 names: creeps, freaks, and weirdos. That's what we all are. But it's cool. It's
Yeah.
cool. We fit in. No one's, we're not in it. We're in a safe place. We're
Mm-hmm.
not at a place where you're afraid to bring it up because you'll get mocked or laughed at
Yeah.
or worse.
It's
You know,
family.
It's family. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
you say that all the time.
Yeah.
I'm glad you say it as well. But it's true.
Yeah.
It really
for
is.
sure.
We're very fortunate with that.
Mhm.
Dale, is there anything you want to close with as we're wrapping up this hour here on Windsor, Ontario's Own the Paranormal Voice with the one and only Laura Squicciarini? Oh my God. So
Only
much
to
talk
say
about.
that we are definitely going to have her back on the show, because we've got so much more to talk about, and I'm sure we haven't even scraped the surface
No.
of the knowledge that's inside of her beautiful brain.
It'd be a pleasure.
So one more time, Laura, real quick, your website and how to contact you.
Yeah,
Please.
it is northwatersalchemy.com. And then from there, there's an email that you can send me. You can book services. And soon I'll have a whole lot of salts and sprays available.
Awesome. Awesome. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we said what we wanted to say. We as a whole, the three of us here, we said what we wanted to say, what we needed to say, what we had to say. Laura Squicciarini, you are awesome and amazing human being. Attitude of gratitude, to say the least, all the way. We all said it. So in the meantime, and in between time, folks, Dale, what do we say?
Happy huntings.